She lied, I quietly let go. There was something eerily quiet about North Bellamy, Oregon, in early autumn. A town of modest hills, forgotten train tracks, and long stretches of farmland kissed by morning fog. It was the kind of place where secrets should have been hard to keep, yet mine had managed to grow roots right under my nose for years. My name's Andrew Callister. I'm 45 now, but this all began when I was 40. Back then, I had no reason to suspect the life I built over nearly 2 decades would unravel. I was a man who thought he understood silence. I grew up around cattle, with a quiet father and a mother who baked more than she spoke. But nothing prepared me for the kind of silence that sneaks into a marriage. The kind that eats away at you when you're not even sure there's anything wrong. I met Caroline when I was 22. She was all fire and wildness, red scarf in the wind, unpredictable and hard to pin down. I was fresh out of trade school and already back on my family's land, working long hours to keep the legacy alive. Caroline was the kind of woman who never seemed meant for a place like Bellamy. But somehow, she stayed. Somehow, she stayed for me. Or so I thought. We had 4 boys over the years, each one more different than the last. Jackson, my oldest, was the ambitious one, the kind who'd argue philosophy with his own shadow. Then came Eli, who lives in his own world, one we never fully understood but love unconditionally. Thomas is 17 and obsessed with classic cars, while Ben, the youngest, just turned 10 and still thinks I'm a superhero. I used to feel proud when I looked at them all together, like maybe I got something right. Like maybe Caroline and I had built a kingdom together. 5 years ago, things started shifting in a way I couldn't quite name. It was subtle at first, new clothes showing up in the closet, her phone always face down, the way she smiled at texts when she thought I wasn't looking. She said a man at her job, a warehouse employee named Shane, had started giving her gifts. Trinkets, mostly. A scarf here, a charm bracelet there. She laughed it off, called it harmless, said it was just some weird guy trying to flirt. I wanted to believe her. Maybe I did. But after that, Shane started appearing in odd places. Once at the hardware store while we were buying fencing wire. Another time at a pub out in Monroe, 40 minutes from where either of them worked. Always just, by coincidence. Always finding a reason to say hello. Caroline would blush. She acted jittery. Like a teenager caught passing notes. Still, I told myself it was nothing. I didn't want to be that guy, the insecure husband sniffing for problems where there weren't any. I told myself that 18 years of marriage earned me the benefit of the doubt. She left that job 2 years ago, and I remember feeling an enormous sense of relief. Like we'd finally closed a chapter we never should have started. We bought more land around that time, nearly 80 acres, and signed a deal with a tech startup wanting to build solar panels across part of it. It was the biggest payday our family ever had. That money was meant to be for our future. For Jackson's med school. For Eli's therapies. For a new barn and maybe, one day, an easier life. But then, 1 month ago, Caroline mentioned in passing that Shane had started working at her new office. Small world, she'd said. Total coincidence. My stomach dropped. But again, I didn't confront her. I just nodded. What else was I supposed to do? The truth is, we hadn't really been a couple in years. We slept in the same bed, shared meals, raised children, but there was no intimacy, no spark. I thought maybe we were just tired. Worn out. I didn't want to believe it was something more. Then came the night that shattered it all. It was a Thursday. I'd just gotten back from taking Ben and Thomas to their late-night boxing class. As I walked across the gravel toward the house, I ran into Melanie, one of the other moms from the class. She looked surprised to see me. "How's Caroline feeling?" she asked. I froze. "What do you mean?" "Oh," she said, "I ran into her at Brew and Barrel in Salem earlier today. She said she was taking a sick day, resting up. I figured it must have hit her hard. She looked confused at my confusion. And I didn't know what to say. Caroline had left the house that morning in full uniform, like every other day. When I came home that afternoon, she was still in her uniform, the one she wears at the vet clinic in Westwood. The coffee shop in Salem was over an hour away. I said something vague to Melanie and walked to the house in a fog. My boots felt too loud on the hardwood. I walked past Caroline in the living room. She smelled different, not like her usual perfume. There was a scent on her clothes I hadn't smelled in years. Familiar, but wrong. The post-intimacy scent that clings to skin, no matter how fast you shower. I went out to the barn that night and sat in the dark for hours. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, staring at the beams above me, thinking about how long it had been since she looked at me like I mattered. A week later, I remembered something from long ago, a drunken conversation in our 20s, where she'd casually admitted to cheating on past boyfriends. I used to be wild, she'd laughed. Too wild. Back then, I told myself I was different. That she loved me. But now I wasn't so sure. It wasn't just Shane. It wasn't even just the coffee shop. It was the way she stopped telling me about her day. The way she flinched when I reached for her hand. The way she never made eye contact anymore. I started going through the motions of the farm with a mechanical precision. Feed the cattle. Run the irrigation. Fix the fence posts. Watch Ben's football games. But emotionally, I was unraveling. I even started digging. I got hold of old phone bills. Back when she still worked with Shane the first time, their texts spiked at absurd hours. Midnight. 3 a.m. hundreds in a single month. She'd told me they barely spoke outside work. A few days later, another twist. I was going over the farm accounts when I noticed something strange. Multiple small transactions at the same boutique in Salem. A place she claimed she'd only been to once. The same boutique where she had supposedly gotten a clearance jacket. So I went. I drove there on a random Tuesday and asked about recent purchases under her name. The clerk, friendly and talkative, casually mentioned Caroline had been there, just last Friday, with a tall guy with tattoos. I thanked her and walked out, heart pounding. Shane had tattoos. I knew now, beyond doubt. But strangely, I felt hollow. Not angry. Not hurt. Just empty. What gutted me wasn't the cheating itself. It was that she'd let it go on so long. That she'd stood by my side while I mortgaged part of my soul for a future she was never really in. And then came the final blow. One of Thomas's friends had borrowed Caroline's laptop during a group project. Later that night, while I was tucking Ben into bed, Thomas came into my room and quietly handed me the computer. He didn't say anything, just nodded at it. I don't know what I expected, but it wasn't this. Open tabs. Emails. A private Gmail account. Messages sent to Shane about sneaking out and missing his smell. Photos. A calendar invite to a wellness weekend in Seattle. She'd told me it was a continuing education retreat for vet techs. It wasn't. The email confirmation included a 2-person suite. With champagne service. I closed the laptop. My hands were shaking. She had made a mockery of our life. But still. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Instead, I did something I never thought I would. I made an appointment with a lawyer. The meeting was brief. Clean. The lawyer told me I had a strong case, especially if I gathered just a bit more evidence. I didn't need to ruin her life, I just needed to secure mine. And my sons. Especially Eli, who would need ongoing care long after we were gone. I also updated the farm title. Quietly shifted ownership of certain parcels into a trust under the boys' names. In case things got ugly. I started journaling again. At first just to keep my mind in order, but then I realized something strange. I didn't miss her. I missed what we used to be, sure. But her. This version of her. The woman who snuck around with a man from the warehouse, who lied with ease, who kissed our children goodnight after spending the afternoon in someone else's bed. I didn't know her. Maybe I never really did. 2 weeks ago, I sat her down. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just laid everything out. From the coffee shop to the boutique to the emails. She didn't deny it. She just stared at me. Cold. Empty. No apology. No anger. Just silence. In the end, it wasn't infidelity that ended my marriage. It was indifference. Today, the divorce is in motion. I still live on the farm with the boys. Jackson just got accepted into a medical program in Eugene. Eli has a new specialist who's changing his life. Thomas is rebuilding a '68 Camaro, and Ben is learning to fish. As for Caroline, she moved into a small rental on the edge of town. Still works at the vet clinic. Still sees Shane, I assume. I no longer care. Some people think betrayal is loud, a slam of the door, a thrown vase, screaming matches. But I've learned it's often quiet. It creeps in. It builds slowly. And one day you look around and realize you're living in the ruins of something you thought would last forever. But from ruins, we rebuild. And now, finally, I breathe easy. For the first time in years.
You waited too long, man. The signs were there for years. Should have confronted her the moment Shane reappeared.
You handled this with grace. Quiet strength speaks louder than confrontation sometimes. Wishing you peace moving forward.
This is heartbreaking, but also weirdly freeing. Sometimes losing the lie is better than keeping the illusion.